Maybe it's, oh, that one's a little easier. A little bit easier. Okay, good. Dadarsha Tatra Kila Sattvatang Pating Shriya Pating Yagya Patim Jagatpatim Sunanda Nanda Prabala Hanadibir Prabala Hanadibir Prabala Hanadibir Prabala Hanadibi. Yeah. Prabala Hanadibi. Does that sound right? Okay. Svaha Parsadagrai I guess that's it. Parisevitam Vibhum. Okay, I'm going to ask somebody else to take it from the top here because I'm not so good at this. I'm a mechanic. Prabhu? Didasha tatra kila sattvatam patim Sriyapatim yagyapatim jagatpatim Sunandananda Prabhalarhanadibi Alright, so it wasn't just me. Anybody else? I'm going to try this. Tadarsha Tatra Kila Sattvatam Patim Shriyapatim Yagyapatim Jagapatim Sunandananda Prabhavarlahandadibi Swaparshadagrai Partisevitam Vibhum. Good job. Darsha Tatra Sattvatam Patim Shriyapatim Jagyapatim Jagapatim Sunandananda Prabhavarlahandadibi Swaparshadagrai Partisevitam Vibhum. Tadarsha Tatra Kila Sattvatam Patim Shriyapatim Jagyapatim Jagatpatim Sunandananda Prabhavarlahandadibi Swaparshadagrai Partisevitam Vibhum. Anybody else? Alright, Divyanga Mataji gets the award for the best job. That was the best one.
What's the award?
Huh?
What's the award?
I don't know, just recognition, I guess. That was really good. Alright, word for word. Didarsha, Brahma saw, Tatra, there, in Vaikuntha Loka, Akila, entire, Sattvatam, of the great devotees, Patim, the Lord, Shriya, of the goddess of fortune, Patim, the Lord, Yagya, of sacrifice, Patim, the Lord, Jagat, of the universe, Patim, the Lord, Sunanda, Sunanda, Nanda, Nanda, Prabala, Prabala, Arhana, Arhana, Adibi by them, Svaparshad, own associates, Agrahai, by the foremost, Parisevitam, being served in transcendental love, Vibhum, the great Almighty. Translation. We're gonna, since I'm doing 14, let's just read right through them. So text 14 is, that was text 14. This is text 14, right? Yes, this is, oh, there it is, okay. The goddess of fortune in her transcendental form is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet, and being moved by the black bees, followers of spring, she's not only engaged in variegated pleasure, service to the Lord, along with her constant companions, but is also engaged in singing the glories of the Lord's activities. Lord Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, and the Lord of the universe, and who is served by the foremost servitors like Nanda, Sunanda, Prabala, and Arhana, his immediate associates. The personality of Godhead, seen leaning favorably towards his loving servitors, his very sight, intoxicating and attractive, appeared to be very much satisfied. He had a smiling face decorated with an enchanting reddish hue. He was dressed in yellow robes and wore earrings and a helmet on his head. He had 4 hands, and his chest was marked with the lines of the goddess of fortune. Wow. All right, so here is purport to text 15. When we speak of a king, it is naturally understood that the king is accompanied by his confidential associates, like his secretary, private secretary, aide-de-camp, ministers, and advisors. So also, when we see the Lord, we see him with his different energies, associates, confidential servitors, etc. So the Supreme Lord, who is the leader of all the living entities, the Lord of all devotee sects, the Lord of all opulences, the Lord of sacrifices, and the enjoyer of everything in his entire creation, is not only the Supreme Person, but also is always surrounded by his immediate associates, all engaged in their loving transcendental service to him. He's the father of everyone, and as a result, he has unlimited children. So in ordinary dealings in this world, family get-togethers. So here's a family get-together, a really, really big one, and it's going on in the spiritual world in mass. Purport to verse 16. In the Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda, there is a full description of the Yogapith, or the particular verse where the Lord is in audience to his eternal devotees. In that Yogapith, the personifications of religion, knowledge, opulence, and renunciation are all seated at the lotus feet of the Lord. The 4 Vedas, namely Rik, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, are present there personally to advise the Lord. The 16 energies headed by Chanda are all present there. Chanda and Kamuda are the first 2 doorkeepers. At the middle door are the doorkeepers named Bhadra and Subhadra, and at the last door are Jaya and Vijaya. There are other doorkeepers also named Kamuda, Kamudadaksha, Pundarik, Vamana, Sankukarna, Sarvanetra, Sumukha, etc. The Lord's palace is well decorated and protected by the above mentioned doorkeepers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurudeve Namaha. Wow. in this section of the this chapter, answers by citing the Lord's version. Lord Brahma is given a tour of the spiritual world. And it was because of this seeing of the spiritual world that he became inspired and knew what to do as far as creating this world. So, as I think I said in my last class, in this world we see so many amazing, beautiful things. Mountains and oceans and forests and gardens and beaches and oh my gosh, there's so many beautiful, beautiful places to see in the world of darkness, in the material energy. So Lord Brahma has seen the spiritual world and then turned around and tried to duplicate it to some degree using the inferior tools that he had to work with, the inferior energy, the inferior stuff that he had to work with to make this place. But still, it came out to be extraordinarily beautiful, but it is so precarious that if he hadn't created a sun also, none of this would exist. It would all just be a total frozen, rocky wasteland at best. So this is the situation, and somehow or another we have decided that this was an okay place to come. I don't know what else to think. I mean, there's so many stories there's so many ideas and so many thoughts about how the living entities decided to come to the material world. And none of that ultimately really matters. Of course, as we know, that what really matters is getting back to where we really belong and ending our misery and suffering. But somehow or another we became attracted to this place. And here we find ourselves. And for the longest time, we have found it to be our home. We've become so covered by the power of the external energy, by the Lord's Maya, by the material energy, by Durga Devi herself, that the power exerted upon our intelligence or lack thereof has caused us to completely forget our original identity in the spiritual world, who we really are, or even what to speak of our identity in the spiritual world, even just the fact that we're spiritual. We've come to believe that this is where we belong, this is our home, and enjoying the material energy is something that we need to do. So it's a very, very unfortunate thing, and Srila Prabhupada would always tell us that. There's so many philosophers these days and so many people who will get up on stages and have big audiences and will try to convince everybody that how wonderful this world is and how you can have such a great life and how you can make lots and lots of money and how you can enjoy abundance. They say that's a common phrase that's used in some places I hear, abundance. That you can have abundance and you can enjoy this world like anything. And that's so enticing to the conditioned souls who completely have forgotten where they really belong and who are addicted to enjoying the material world and being in Maya, thinking that this is where they belong. So Srila Prabhupada come along and was like, no, stop, full stop. You guys need to wake up and realize that this isn't a good place. There's an alternative. And everybody, I think, in their hearts to some degree or another realizes that this is a world of suffering, and that we spend so much of our time just trying to avoid suffering. However, I've seen in my own lifetime, we've all seen in our own lifetime, it's really obvious, really clear that there's so many souls out there who are so covered by Maya that they believe that actually this is such a wonderful, happy place. But you know, you look just below the surface. You can go to some beautiful, beautiful tropical places, some of the most beautiful places in the world, and they're just so refreshing to look at. Krishna's energy, Lord Brahma made them. Yes, they are very beautiful. They are amazing. We can appreciate them in that way. And as in relation to how they're an attempt to duplicate the spiritual world, our real home. That's the way I think that we should look at it. But when you look just below the surface, there is an insidious world of one living entity eating another living entity to survive. You have the desperate struggle amongst the animals and the insects and the germs and the microbes and the bacteria and the plants, and everything else is like just clinging to life, but for a short bit of time, they've got maybe a little bit of respite and they're displaying their beauty. So anyways, this is the nature of the material world. We all know about that. And I had printed off a number of different things today that I wanted to, actually as I was reading these verses, I was somehow or another, I don't know why, but I was attracted to the idea of the intoxicating and attractive, where is it? No, is it? It's about the bees. The bees. Where is that verse? 14, 15. There it is. The goddess of fortune in her transcendental form is engaged in the loving service of the Lord's lotus feet, and being moved by the black bees, followers of spring, she's not only engaged in variegated pleasure. I was thinking that this, the bees are often used by the great souls who describe the beauty of the spiritual world as a very nice poetic ornament, but they're very real. In this world, where there's so many different types of living entities, and in the spiritual world, there are so many more. The difference being that in the material world, they're covered, and they only exist for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But in the spiritual world, everything and everyone, including the bees, are fully conscious and fully aware of the Lord's nature. And I believe that when we go there, we're going to be able to understand everything about them. We're even going to be able to understand their thoughts. If you want anything you focus on in the spiritual realm, you're going to be able to understand everything about it and what they're thinking. So I think that that's the nature. And I've learned about some of these kinds of things from hearing different things over the many years I've been studying into Lord Krishna. So what I did on the bees, on the topic of the bees, I printed off a few things from various, from the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I'm going to read a little bit about glorifying the bees, because when we glorify the devotees of the Lord, the bees, it's very, very purifying. When Lord Chaitanya was, in the Chaitanya Bhagavad, there's a very beautiful story about how Lord Chaitanya was traveling, his first attempt to go to Vrindaban. And when he got to the area of Bengal, numerous personalities were approaching him, and they were asking him questions. He was seated at the home of, I can't remember his name, but he was seated at the home of one devotee of his, and various people were coming forward and they were asking questions. And at that time, the devotee who had offended Srivas Thakur and was suffering very, very badly from a disease as a result of his offense, he approached Lord Chaitanya again. He had approached him another time earlier, and Lord Chaitanya basically just sent him away. But he approached Lord Chaitanya again, and he said, "What is the remedy? I've blasphemed the devotees. I've said so many bad things about them, and now my heart just burns. And I feel so much torment for having been so critical and so blasphemous. And I think that my future is very, very dark." And Lord Chaitanya confirmed, yes, your future is very, very dark, because you've criticized great, great devotees. And you said very, very bad things about them. And the future is not going to be good for you at all. But there's a way, there's a remedy how to deal with this. And he gave the example that if one drinks poison, but then drinks the elixir of immortality, the poison will wither away and then one will become restored. So he pointed out that the elixir of immortality is glorifying the devotees. Previously you had criticized them, and by that means you have drank poison. But now you can turn that around and you can counteract that poison, that very, very dangerous, destructive poison of blaspheming the devotees. You can counteract it completely by glorifying them. So write poetry, write books, and wherever you go and whoever you meet, glorify the devotees of Lord Krishna. And in this way, your offenses will be destroyed. So, no doubt about it, I've committed many offenses in my lifetime, knowingly or unknowingly. So today I thought, as we're talking about the great, great devotees in the spiritual world, who are the bees. They're so dear to the Lord, they're so exalted, they're such great servitors of the Lord that in so many books that we have they are pointed out as being very near to the Lord, and they're flying around his flower garland that he's wearing in his chest. So if only we could be so fortunate. So I wanted to read a little bit of a few things that I printed off from Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, just a few verses which mentions the bees. So here's one from Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, 15th chapter, verse 6. O original personality, these bees must all be great sages and most elevated devotees of yours, for they are worshipping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are themselves a holy place for the entire world. Though you've disguised yourself within this forest, O sinless one, they refuse to abandon you, their worshipable Lord. Very beautiful verse. Glorification of the bees, who knew? And then Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 59, verse 40. Once planted, the Parijata tree beautified the garden of Queen Satyabhama's palace. Bees followed the tree all the way from heaven, greedy for its fragrance and sweet sap. In this pastime, the Lord went to, with Arjuna, he went to Lord Indra's abode. And there, his wife, Satyabhama, saw in the garden, the Nandana Kandana gardens of Lord Indra, the Parijata tree, which wasn't present on the earth. But she saw it and she fell in love with it, and she asked Krishna, please, let's take one of those home with us. And so Krishna was like, by all means, let's do. So they grabbed one and took it with them, and as they were leaving, Indra heard about this. Previously, a few moments earlier, he was hosting Lord Krishna, worshiping him, glorifying him, and treating him so well. And then in the next moment, only because his wife wanted to take one of their flowers from his garden, now Lord Indra somehow or another, I don't know how this happened, somehow or another Lord Indra becomes upset about this. And then I believe, was it right, a fight ensued over this issue? Was there a fight involved? Fight or words or something like that. But anyways, of course, Lord Krishna got his way. And they took the Parijata tree down to this planet and planted it in Satyabhama's garden. And they lived happily ever after with that beautiful Parijata flower tree. And the bees from the heavenly planets, I guess, came along with it. Here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 21, verse 41. The area resounded with the notes of overjoyed birds. Intoxicated bees wandered there. Intoxicated peacocks proudly danced, and merry cuckoos called one another. So now we're talking about Kardama Muni and his garden that he manifests by his mystic powers for his beautiful wife Devahuti. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, verse 30. Now here we are with Kapila Muni and his mother Devahuti. And here, Lord Kapila is describing a method of meditating on the Lord. And he's describing the beautiful features of the Lord that one should meditate on one after another. He starts at the lotus feet of the Lord and works his way up. And finally he comes to the beautiful lotus face of the Lord. The yogi then meditates upon the beautiful face of the Lord, which is adorned with curly hair and decorated by lotus-like eyes and dancing eyebrows. A lotus surrounded by swarming bees and a pair of swimming fish would be put to shame by its elegance. And then in the 4th canto, chapter 7, verse 20, we have, this is going to be when Lord Vishnu appeared in the sacrifice at Daksha. So Lord Vishnu, as I think most of you probably know the story, Daksha's sacrifice, Sati his wife, Lord Shiva, Lord Daksha offends Lord Shiva, Sati becomes very upset. At some point though, after the whole commotion where the sacrifice was practically destroyed by Virabhadra, it gets put back together, and then finally Lord Vishnu appears. And so here's a little description, a verse that describes his unprecedented beauty as he appeared at that sacrifice. His complexion was blackish, his garment yellow like gold, and his helmet dazzling as a sun. His hair was bluish, the color of black bees, and his face was decorated with earrings. His 8 hands this time, not 4, 8 hands held a conch shell, wheel, club, lotus flower, arrow, bow, shield, and sword, and they were decorated with golden ornaments such as bangles and bracelets. His whole body resembled a blossoming tree, beautifully decorated with various kinds of flowers. And then we have, again at the sacrifice of Daksha, Canto 4, Chapter 7, verse 21. Lord Vishnu looked extraordinarily beautiful because of the goddess of fortune, and a garland were situated on his chest. His face was beautifully decorated with a smiling attitude which captivated the entire world, especially the devotees. Fans of white hair appeared on both sides of the Lord like white swans, and the white canopy overhead looked like the moon. Okay, that one didn't have anything about bees in it, and I printed it out. Anyways, it's beautiful. And then, what do we got here? Okay, now we go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Madhya Lila, Chapter 25, verse 273. Devotional service to Krishna is exactly like a pleasing, jubilant forest of lotus flowers, wherein there is ample honey. I request everyone to taste this honey. If all the mental speculators bring the bees of their minds into this forest of lotus flowers and jubilantly enjoy ecstatic love of Krishna day and night, their mental speculation will be completely, transcendentally satisfied. So here in this very, very beautiful poetic verse describing devotional service to Lord Krishna, again, the topic and the subject of bees are used. So, bees are great, great souls. O good fortune, this is Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 24, verse 177. O good fortune personified, O original personality of Godhead, all these bees are chanting about your transcendental fame, which will purify the entire universe. Indeed, they are following your path in the forest and worshiping you. Actually, they're also, this is from the 10th canto. Yep, I read this verse already. So, you do the search in the database and type in just black bees, and these are the things that come up. And here from back to Srimad Bhagavatam again, Canto 3, chapter 15, verse 28. Here we are with Jai and Vijay, the two inner doormen, Lord Krishna's palace in the spiritual world. The two doormen were garlanded with fresh flowers which attracted intoxicated bees and which were placed around their necks and between their four blue arms. From their arched eyebrows, discontented nostrils, and reddish eyes, they appeared somewhat agitated. And oh my gosh, did they have quite the adventure after that, as the Kumaras cursed them and they had to come down and become great, great demons for 3 verse. So in this way, the bees are great souls. And I tell you what, after reading that, I feel really amazing. I was really ecstatic reading that. It's amazing how that works. But this is devotional service. One of the things that I used to notice when I would come to the temple, well, I still notice it today, of course, but when you're here and you're engaged in worshiping of the Lord very nicely, and then you leave out, especially if you leave out the grounds and you go somewhere else where the power of this place diminishes, then you can really, really feel the difference. It is said that one usually only feels ecstasy when one is worshiping the Lord. And that's been my experience as well too. While we're worshiping the Lord, while we're glorifying Him in some way, we feel this heightened sense of happiness. And then when we stop, it kind of goes away. So, yeah, I think though that the great souls, those really, really great pure devotees though, who have washed away, in fact I know, washed away all the material contamination, they feel the great ecstasy all the time. Then it's just a matter of how much ecstasy. When they're worshiping the Lord, then that ecstasy increases greatly. So that's why we hear all these descriptions about how, suddenly someone's worshiping the Lord, dancing and chanting and kirtan, and then the next thing you know, they're falling and behaving in all kinds of mysterious ways that we usually can't understand. But these are the ecstatic symptoms displayed by great and pure devotees. And some of those chapters have become my favorite chapters. I remember the first time I listened to the Chaitanya Charitamrita and I heard like the ecstatic manifestations of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which I believe is chapter 2 of the Madhya Lila. And there's a very, very long, beautiful, amazing description by Krishnadas Kaviraj about how Lord Chaitanya's different manifestations of ecstasy would play on his person. And the first time I heard that, I was, a little bewildered by it all, and I thought, okay, that's neat. And then I listened to it again, and I thought, and then it hit me just a little bit more, and then I listened to it again. And every time I would hear these descriptions, I think that Krishna was showing just a little bit more, and a little bit more. And it became more and more attractive. And that is the magic of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishnadas Kaviraj says in that book that it has great magic, it has great power, it has great spiritual potency, and that one should hear it over and over again in order to greatly benefit, is his words. So long ago I tried that. I think I said before in previous classes I had a job where I was able to actually listen to some of Prabhupada's books, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, like that. And I would listen to them, the translations by Amal Bhakta. They're on YouTube, you can hear them, they're very beautifully done. And I would listen to the whole book all the way through, and then I would listen to it again, and I would listen to it again, and I promise you, if you try that, every time you listen to it, every time, it becomes more and more amazing, more and more thrilling. The education is unprecedented. Your understanding of Krishna, of the spiritual world, of the things that we really want to know, greatly, greatly increases. I had listened to the Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm thinking probably about 10 times all the way through, Amal Bhakta's narration of the Srimad Bhagavatam. At least 10 times all the way through I did that. And it was so ecstatic that it was such a great education that I found myself being able to compose prayers off the top of my head, just like you hear, just like you read in Bhagavatam, these amazing prayers. Oh my dear Lord, these astonishing prayers that you hear these great devotees say, with all these deep philosophical and ornamental type things. I found myself able to do that. It was unbelievable. So this is the power that these books have. And so I highly recommend it. Please, everybody, give it a try sometime. Listen to some of these books all the way through, and then do it again and do it again. If you want to become really confident in your understanding of what we have here, and confident in what to do next in spiritual life and what not to do, I think that's probably the fastest way to do it. Yeah, so I can't say enough about it. It was so beneficial for me personally that I just that's why every time I get on this seat and I give a class, I have to say something about that, because I'm trying to encourage everybody to give it a try, because it's really powerful, really amazing, and it works really fast. I found for myself that nothing else has worked as well and as fast as hearing these books straight through a few times in a row. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it on that. What time is it? Okay, 1:45. So I'm going to end it here, and then we can take some questions if you like. And one thing I want to do, I wanted to tell everybody, I've been thinking about this a lot. I recommend that everybody practice praising others for the nice things that you see them do. Be generous with your praising of others for the things that you see them doing that you know are really nice. For instance, there's a devotee, Gopisa's son, Nityananda, who's out here grinding down these horrible, horrible curbs, speed light bumps in our roads. And it is dirty, and it is dusty, and he's out there day after day, and he's covered with dust. So please, anybody and everybody, I mean, this is an amazing service. I don't know how much you guys hated, but I hated driving over those things, and you're poof, 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 every few feet. It's awful. And he's out there grinding these things down. So if anybody sees him as you drive by or something, please say, wow, Prabhu, you got to stop. And, give him some encouragement, because, I'm sure he's probably in ecstasy because devotional service is that way. And some of the lowliest devotional services that you would think are lowly, some of those are actually some of the most ecstatic things that you can do. So everyone, be generous in your praise of others. Avoid fault finding. Avoid things produced in your mind of envy and jealousy and the tendency to want to criticize people for even small things. What to speak of tattletaling on them? This isn't grade school. This isn't junior high. We're all adults here. So let's give these kinds of things up. But serving the devotees. Ask when someone comes up to you and says, Prabhu, would you help me out with this? I always made it my motto that my response was always, yes, absolutely. The only time I wouldn't say yes is if because there's no way it could be done. I'd be like, well, I have actually another commitment that I actually have to do, and there's no way I can get out of it. But I would still sit there and try to think and negotiate, well, how could I do this with you? Another time, maybe a little before I have to do this, or a little after I have to do this. Does it have to be done right now? Stuff like that. Service to the devotees is, I think, one of the most ecstatic things and rewarding things that you can do. It kept me afloat. I mean, I came up through the 80s. I was one of the first wave of devotees that came just after Srila Prabhupada left this world. I joined in 1979. And so through the early 80s and stuff, there were some turbulent times in ISKCON, but I made it through, happily. So anyways, another person I wanted to stop and say something about is this writing on this board right here is amazing. I venture to guess we have one of the best calligraphers in the Kunja Vilasini in probably the movement. This is unbelievable. And I'll bet she probably does this I know she does this freehand and probably the first try. Unbelievable.
Did you notice the sign above Govinda's checkout register?
Yes.
Yes.
Who did that?
That's Nikunja.
Oh my God.
That's a piece of art.
When I saw that, I asked Madhuri, I says, is that like something that we had hired done by somebody? Is that chalk? Did somebody do that by hand? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So anyways, we're very fortunate in that regard. Okay, that's it. Any questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, I just wanted to,
Keep close.
you were talking about praising.
It's on.
What's on?
Hello. You're talking about praising, very good idea. They say the sweetest sound in the world is praise. How can you tell us a little bit of the difference between flattery and praise?
Flattery. No, I can't really think of it. I'd have to think about that for a little while. I'd have to think about that for a bit. Anybody else got any ideas on that? Mirabai? Flattery and praise.
To me, flattery is something you do to get something out of it from someone else. So you're looking for some return in some way. So you might, say all these flowery things to someone to get something in return. And praise is heartfelt. It comes from a pure place and genuine place.
And there's no expectation of return.
No, that's right. No
There you go.
expectation of return.
All right, well, that's a critical difference. One is probably born in the mode of goodness, and one is born in the mode of passion, I would say.
Totally off that. In the Bhagavad and Gita and all that, it always refers to the bees as black bees. Are they a transcendental type of bee? Do we have those kind of bees?
I was thinking about that, and maybe there is some country, but I don't really see them here.
And
Black bees.
there are black bees?
Yeah.
And
There you
do
go.
they sting? Do they have a stinger?
I don't know.
Apparently not in the transcendental,
We don't want to find out.
You can see them. If you go to Vrindaban also you can find.
I got a little story about wasps. You know, the Radha Gopinath temple that we were working on this summer, there was these black wasps. I mean, the real scary kind, with the thin, long wings and the long bodies. Oh my gosh, the real scary kind. However, I don't understand it. I can't understand it at all. But there was probably hundreds of them things that would hang out at the top of that temple. And there was a plywood roof over there for a long time before we put what we've got up there now. So we thought that maybe there was a nest up there. So when we went up there about a month or so ago with the lift to take those plywood boards off, that temporary roof off, because we were going to put the cupola up top there, we thought we're going to find a nest up there. We had our spray ready and everything, because we were afraid that these things were just going to attack. Because usually that's what they do. You get near those guys and you'll be in trouble real quick if you mess with them. But it was unbelievable. They would not attack. And as we took the roof plywood off, there was no nest. So they were just hanging around up there, just flying around. It was kind of like they're gathering in social place. I don't know if maybe there was a queen up there or what, but there were hundreds of them. And I wouldn't, and a couple of devotees went up in the lift to go take that off anyways, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to go up there, no way, because there were way too many of them things. And when I was 2 years old, I got stung on the back of the neck in one of them things. I'll never forget it. But in any case, so they were up there working, tearing this whole thing apart. We're thinking there's no nest, and they would not attack. They flew around, practically landing on you. There were hundreds of them, They never, there were 3 to 4 people working up there, and not a single person got attacked. I couldn't believe it. Finally, after a day, the next day, I was like, okay, fine, I'll go up there too. But oh my God! And so I'm watching these guys, and as we're working up there, they're flying around happily, and sometimes they're wrestling with each other. You'll see them, but they would not attack. So maybe it's the spiritual power and influence of the Radha Gopinath temple. I don't know what to say about all that, but that was quite the amazing little event. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna. So Prabhu, you were mentioning about hearing of Srila Prabhupada books in YouTube. Is it is read fully as it is, or it is explanation?
Just the translations. This is by Amal Bhaktadas. Amal Bhaktadas is Prabhupada's disciple, and in the late 70s and early 80s, he probably...
He's a Swami now, I think.
Huh?
Amala Bhakta Swami.
Yeah. Okay, yes. That's correct. I've heard that recently. So anyways, he took the time and trouble to read them very, very nicely. And he's who I call the Mel Blanc of ISKCON, because he's got this ability to change his voices to all these different characters. So he reads them in a very dramatic fashion. And he does a very nice job, set to classical Indian Shanai music usually. And yeah, they're out there on YouTube, the entire Bhagavatam, the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many books he did. I don't know how he did all these books, but it must have taken a lot of time to do it, because he did them so nicely.
So you were saying only translations?
Yes, yes, but done in a dramatic way, using different voices for each character. You know, Maitreya Muni's got one voice, Sukadeva Goswami's got another voice, Maharaj Parikshit's got another. It's amazing. I don't know how he did it. I tell you, he's the Mel Blanc of ISKCON. Anybody else? All right.
Can you say that we do have the whole, right? Tulsi Prabhu, he did the whole purpose, right? We have the recordings of everything. Are you familiar with those?
There is someone out there who has done that.
Damodar Prabhu, Tulsi Prabhu.
It's on YouTube?
Had the whole
Yes.
production of, I don't know, all the books.
There's a
It's
whole
an
app.
app, you can get an app to your phone.
Bhaktivinoda Vedic Library.
I'll give it up to Vedic Library.
And they're in YouTube. I've got some that are on YouTube. With purports. Yes, and different devotee has read the books with the purports, yes. So you can hear both. You can hear both.
Anyway, so what's the place to find it?
Bhaktivinoda Vedic Library.org.
Bhaktivedantavedic.library.org. All right. Hare Krishna, all glorious.
I have.
Oh, okay.
No rush. You mentioned in the last verses, you quoted the verse, and the verse was talking about the be of the mind. So that was a little bit different meaning there, which you elaborate.
Where's this at? Which verse is
I
this?
think 60 verse you were reading. So that was an analogy, which is very common analogy. Maybe you can mention it.
All right. Where is that? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I think it was the last verse which you read for us.
In a purport or a verse?
No, that was the verse which you call, one of the verses which you
Oh, from here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
The last or the last before?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide which that might be.
CC verse.
And say that again. What? How did it go?
Be of the mind.
Oh. Let's see here. Because some of these, as I printed them out, some of them got
But what
purports.
does that mean? Even if you don't, it's just a phrase.
Oh, be of the mind. Okay.
Because it doesn't talk about there's this a famous analogy which is...
As the bees are found to be buzzing around, there it is, formed in the mind. as the bees are found buzzing around a flower garland, in the same way, one's mind, like a bee, can be buzzing around the various beautiful features of the Lord's face. And let's see if there was a purport to that, if I can find that one. That would be on Canto 3.
If you don't remember, I can just mention it.
No, it's just a matter of probably finding it, hopefully.
Because it says such a... I remember I've heard it first time in Vrindaban years ago. Somewhere I got it.
Canto
We
3,
can
I
choose
think.
to either have the mind like the bee or mind like the fly. Right. That's what actually we're talking about. Bee looking for the good, or a fly looking for the bad. I mean, that's one of the meaning of that idea. So it's good to mention sometimes the obvious things. It's good to be reminded that
Yes, I like
we
it.
want to have the mind of the bee looking for the nectar and the good things which Prabhu was mentioning, to appreciate all this.
Yes.
Not to be a fly, which
That's
might
my fault, everybody. And that's,
Thank you very much.
All right, Hare Krishna. Yes. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam.
Thank you for the research. Amazing.
Hare Krishna.
Printer now too?
I do.